Alam mo, Joy, kung hindi ka mag-aasawa in 3 months, tanggal ka na sa board. At yung posisyon mo bilang CEO, mapupunta na sa pinsan mong si Anton. Yun ang ultimatum ni Lolo Vicente Monteverde, ang patriarch ng kanilang pamilya at ang nag-iisang maihawak ng susi sa kinabukasan ni Joy sa Monteverde Group of Companies. Hindi yun pakiusap. Utos iyon. At si Joy, na buong buhay ay sinubukang i-please ang kanyang lolo, ay napalunok na lang. Mag-asawa? In 3 months. Saan naman siya hahagilap ng mapapangasawa sa ganun kaikling panahon? Lolo, are you serious? Joy asked, her voice trembling slightly, trying to maintain her composure in front of her entire extended family, who were all gathered for their usual Sunday power lunch sa mansion. Lahat sila nakatingin sa kanya, waiting for her reaction. Si Anton, yung pinsan niyang laging nakaabang sa pwesto niya, may ngisi pa sa labi. Kailan ba ako hindi naging seryoso, Joy Marie? Sagot ni Lolo Vicente, yung mga mata niya, kasing talas ng tingin ng agila. You are almost 30. It's time you settle down. Monteverde needs an heir. At kung hindi mo iyon may bibigay, then maybe you are not fit to lead this company. Gulat. Galit. Intriga. Lahat naghalo-halo sa dibdib ni Joy. This was unfair. She had dedicated her entire life to the company. Siya ang nagpalago nito. Tapos ngayon, tatanggalin lang siya dahil lang wala siyang asawa? Anong klaseng medieval thinking iyon? That night, Joy found herself in her best friend Nicole's condo, ranting, crying, and drinking way too much wine. Nakakainis, Nick. Nakakainis talaga si Lolo. Akala mo kung sino siyang makapagdikta ng buhay ko. As if naman ganun kadaling maghanap ng mapapangasawa. Nicole, ever a pragmatic one, just listened patiently. Then, she opened her laptop. Alam mo, Joy, Nicole said, a mischievous glint in her eyes, may na-discover akong interesting website. It's called Para sa Puso, V. Para sa Puso, V. Joy frowned. Ano yan? Dating site? Nick, I don't have time for. Hindi siya ordinaryong dating site, Bess, Nicole cut her off, grinning. It's more like companion for hire, / pretend boyfriend / girlfriend, / let's make your family think you're in a serious relationship, kind of site. Gets mo? Joy stared at her, horrified. Are you suggesting na naumupa ako ng boyfriend? Well, technically, yes, Nicole shrugged. Desperate times call for desperate measures, diba? At least, for 3 months, may fiance ka nang maihaharap kay Lolo Vicente. After that, bahala na si Batman. At first, Joy dismissed the idea. It was ridiculous. Preposterous. Pero habang papalapit ang deadline ni Lolo Vicente, at habang lalong nagiging desperada si Joy, yung ideya ni Nicole, parang hindi na masyadong baliw. And so, one late night, fueled by desperation and another bottle of wine, Joy found herself scrolling through the profiles on Para sa Puso, they. Karamihan, mga model-looking guys with cheesy pick-up lines and overly edited photos. Wala siyang mapili. Until she stumbled upon one profile. Username, Zen. Age, 28. Status, complicated. Skills, good listener, can pretend to be in love convincingly, expert in handling demanding lolos. Yung profile picture niya, medyo blurry, medyo madilim. Pero yung mga mata niya, yun ang nakakuha ng atensyon ni Joy. There was something in his eyes, a hint of sadness, a touch of mystery, and if depth that seemed to say, understand your pain. I can play this game. Halos walang ibang information sa profile niya. Blanco. Pero yung mga matang yun parang nangungusap. Parang totoo. This guy, Joy muttered to herself. He's perfect. She contacted Zen through the site. Nag-reply ito agad. They agreed to meet the next day at the quiet coffee shop. Pagdating ni Joy sa coffee shop, naunahan na siya ni Zen. He was surprisingly ordinary looking. Hindi yung typical artista type na ini-expect niya. Nakasimpleng t-shirt lang ito, maong, at sneakers. But his eyes were exactly as captivating as they were in his photo. Malalim, mapanuri, at may kung anong lungkot. Joy Monteverde, he asked, his voice a low, pleasant rumble. Joy nodded, trying to appear composed, all business. And you must be Zen. She pulled out a folder from her designer handbag. Prepared contract, she said, sliding it across the table. 3 months. You will pretend to be in a loving, devoted fiancé. You will meet my family, attend family events, and basically convince in my Lolo Vicente that we are madly in love and about to get married. Zen picked up the contract, his eyes scanning the pages. He didn't flinch at the detailed clauses, at the strict non-disclosure agreement, or even at the public display of affection requirements. And in return, he asked, his gaze meeting hers. In return, Joy said, her voice firm, I will pay you 500,000 pesos. 500,000. For 3 months of pretending. It was a hefty sum, but Joy was desperate. Zen looked at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, a small, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips. Deal, he said, his voice calm, steady. Walang sabit. He signed the contract without even reading it thoroughly. Then, he looked at Joy. So, kailan tayo magsisimula, Miss Monteverde? Joy, surprised by his easy acceptance, quickly regained her composure. Now, she said. She pulled out her phone, opened her cash app, and with a few taps, transferred 500,000 to the account number Zen had provided. Transaction successful. Binili niya siya. Sa halagang 500,000. Ang kanyang key fiancé for hire. As they walked out of the coffee shop, Joy couldn't help but feel a strange mixture of gulat, intriga, and a teeny, almost insignificant, flicker of something else. This Zen he was an enigma. And she had feeling that the next 3 months were going to be anything but simple. The game had begun. And Joy Monteverde, for the first time in her life, was playing for stakes higher than she could ever imagine. The next Sunday, Villa del Monte was abuzz. Joy was finally introducing her fiancé to the entire Monteverde clan. Lahat sila curious. Sino ba itong lalaking bigla na lang sumulpot sa buhay ng key iron lady ng pamilya? Zen arrived looking surprisingly presentable. Naka-crisp na barong Tagalog ito, yung buhok niya, maayos ang suklay, at yung sapatos niya, makintab. He still had that quiet, enigmatic air about him, pero may dagdag na confidence. O baka naman, galing lang talaga siyang umarte. Lolo Vicente, this is Zen Lazaro, Diva Fiant, Joy announced, trying to keep her voice steady, her hand linked, a little too tightly, perhaps, with Zen's. Lolo Vicente looked Zen up and down, his eyes sharp and appraising. Then, he extended his hand. Zen Lazaro. Welcome to Villa del Monte. Zen took Lolo Vicente's hand, not with a modern handshake, but with a traditional manupo, bowing his head slightly. Maraming salamat po sa pagtanggap, Lolo Vicente, Zen said, his voice respectful, his gaze steady. Joy was stunned. Paano niya nalaman iyon? That old-fashioned Filipino gesture of respect. It was something Lolo Vicente secretly appreciated, something very few people outside their close family circle knew. Even Joy sometimes forgot to do it. Lolo Vicente's stern expression softened, just a fraction. Marunong ka palang rumespeto sa matatanda, iho, he said, a hint of approval in his voice. Magandang simula yan. The rest of the family lunch was a blur of introductions, polite inquiries, and subtle interrogations. Zen handled it all with an unnerving calmness. He answered their questions politely, charmed Joy's titas with his quiet wit, and even managed to engage Lolo Vicente in a surprisingly intelligent conversation about, of all things, agriculture and sustainable farming. Joy had no idea Zen knew anything about those things. She had barely given him any background information, just the basics. Pero yung pinaka-nakakagulat kay Joy was the chemistry between them. It was undeniable. The way Zen would subtly brush her hand when reaching for a glass, the way his eyes would meet hers across the table, silent understanding passing between them. Yung ki-accidental touch nila nung sabay nilang kinuha, yung serving spoon ng sinigang, nagkatinginan sila and for a long moment, the world seemed to stop. Joy felt her heart skip a beat, her cheeks flush. It felt so real. Too real. Hoy, di ba contract lang yan? Nicole whispered to Joy later, nung nagkaroon sila ng chance na mag-usap ng sarilinan. Bakit parang kinikilig ka na dyan kay Papa Zen mo? Ang galing niyang umarte, ha? Pang-famas? Nick. Hindi ako kinikilig, no? Joy hissed, though her racing heart betrayed her. He's just a very good actor. That's what paid him for. But was it just acting? Yung paraan ng pagtitig ni Zen sa kanya, yung mga maliliit na gestures niya, yung pag-adjust ng buhok niya, pag nalalaglag sa mukha niya, yung pag-abot ng panyo, pag nakikita niyan. Pinagpapawisan siya, it all felt genuine. Or maybe, she was just starting to fall for her own charade. That evening, there was a small, impromptu party at the mansion for some of Lolo Vicente's business associates. Joy, of course, had to show off her new fiancé. The party was boring, filled with stuffy old men talking about stocks and mergers. Joy was starting to feel suffocated. Excuse me for a moment, Zen whispered in her ear, his warm breath sending shivers down her spine. He then politely excused himself from key conversation with a rather long-winded senator, took Joy's hand, and led her out onto the deserted rooftop terrace of the mansion. Bakit mo ako dinala dito? Joy asked, surprised. Mukhang kailangan mo ng hangin, Zen said, a small smile playing on his lips. At mukhang kailangan mo rin ng escape. He gestured towards the glittering city lights below. Mas maganda ang view dito, di ba? They stood there in comfortable silence for a while, just enjoying the cool night air and the breathtaking view. Salamat, Zen, Joy said softly. For tonight. You were amazing. Trabaho lang, Miss Monteverde, Zen replied, but there was teasing glint in his eyes. Joy na lang. Since we're engaged, she said, a small smile on her own lips. Okay. Joy, he said, and the way he said her name, so softly, so intimately, made her heart flutter again. They started talking. About everything and nothing. About her frustrations with her family, about his vague dreams of a simple life, about their shared love for surprisingly old Filipino movies. For the first time, Joy felt like she was talking to the real Zen, not that fiancé for hire, but the man behind the enigmatic eyes. Alam mo, Zen, Joy found herself saying, you make me feel something I haven't felt in years. Yung parang may nakakaintindi sa akin. Kahit alam kong acting lang to lahat. Zen looked at her then, his eyes searching hers in the dim moonlight. Paano kung hindi lang to acting para sa akin, Joy, he whispered, his voice barely audible. Before Joy could react, before she could even process his words, his face was close to hers, his gaze dropping to her lips. The kilig was so intense, it was almost painful. This was it, he was going to kiss her. But then, just as their lips were about to meet, Nicole's frantic voice called out from the doorway. Joy! Zen! Pinapatawag na kayo ni Lolo. May important announcement daw. The moment was broken. They quickly pulled apart, their faces flushed, their hearts pounding. As they walked back into the noisy, crowded ballroom, Joy couldn't shake off Zen's words. Paano kung hindi lang to acting para sa akin? Was it possible? Was this fake boyfriend, this man she had literally bought, actually developing real feelings for her? And more importantly, was she developing real feelings for him too? The lines of their contract were starting to blur. And Joy Monteverde, the pragmatic, all-business CE, was starting to feel chemistry so real, so potent, it scared the hell out of her. The important announcement from Lolo Vicente turned out to be an actual wedding date. 3 weeks from now. Sila na daw ni Zen ang bahala sa details, basta ang importante, may kasalang magaganap. Joy almost choked on her champagne. 3 weeks. Akala niya, may 3 months pa siya. Lolo Vicente was really pushing it. The pressure was immense. Joy and Zen were suddenly thrust into a whirlwind of wedding preparations, askally, para lang mas maging convincing ang kanilang palabas. They had to choose the venue. Lolo Vicente suggested the family's private resort in Batangas, meet with wedding planners, na halatang kinikilig sa love story nila, and even attend precana seminars, which was hilariously awkward, to say the least. Pero sa gitna ng lahat ng to, yung real chemistry na naramdaman nila sa rooftop terrace, parang unti-unti nang nagiging real feelings. Especially for Joy. She found herself looking forward to their wedding planning sessions, not because of the wedding itself, but because it meant spending more time with Zen. She loved listening to his quiet insights, his surprisingly practical suggestions. She loved the way his eyes would crinkle at the corners when he smiled, a rare but precious sight. She even loved their comfortable silences, stark contrast to the noisy, demanding world she was used to. Pero yung puso niya naguguluhan. This was supposed to be fake, right? A business transaction. Pero bakit parang mas totoo pa to sa lahat ng naging relasyon niya noon? Then came the celos. One afternoon, Joy went to Zen's small, rented apartment. He still maintained his simple life persona, despite the Monteverde contract, to discuss some wedding details. Pagdating niya, may naabutan siyang babae doon. Spretty, young woman, laughing animatedly with Zen as they looked at something on his laptop. It was his secretary from Para sa Puso, the one who handled his bookings. Pero si Joy, hindi niya yun alam. Ang nakita lang niya, isang magandang babae, tumatawa kasama ng client niya sa apartment nito. And a sharp, unexpected pang of jealousy shot through her. Oh, Joy, andyan ka na pala, Zen said, looking up, a little surprised. Si Mara nga pala, yung tumutulong sa akin sa mga papeles. Mara smiled politely at Joy. Nice to meet you, Ma'am Joy. Congrats po sa inyo ni Sir Zen. Joy just nodded curtly, her face a mask of cold indifference. May kailangan lang kaming pag-usapan ni Zen. Privately. Her voice was dripping with ice. Mara, sensing the tension, quickly excused herself. Once she was gone, Joy turned to Zen, her arms crossed, her eyes blazing. So, Mara pala, ha, she said, her voice tight. Mukhang close kayo. Zen looked at her, confused. Si Mara? Sekretary ko lang yun, Joy. Ano bang problema? Wala. Joy snapped. Wala akong problema. Bakit naman ako magkakaroon ng problema? Di ba, fake lang naman to lahat. Her voice was laced with a bitterness that surprised even herself. Wala lang yun. Never mind. Tumalikod siya, akmang aalis. Zen grabbed her arm, gently but firmly. Joy, wait. He turned her around to face him. Kung fake lang to, bakit ka affected? Bakit parang nagsiselos ka? Joy stared at him, her heart pounding. Nagsiselos nga ba siya? Hindi ako nagsiselos, she denied, a little too quickly, a little too loudly. Bakit naman ako magsiselos sa isang contract boyfriend? A small, knowing smile played on Zen's lips. Sigurado ka? He asked softly, his eyes searching hers. Joy couldn't meet his gaze. She pulled her arm away. May meeting pa ako, she mumbled, then practically ran out of his apartment, leaving Zen standing there, a thoughtful, almost tender, expression on his face. The tampuhan between them lasted for a few days. Nag-iiwasan sila. Nagpaplastikan. Pero yung tension, yung unspoken feelings lalong lumalalim. Meanwhile, Lolo Vicente was not oblivious. He was a shrewd old man, and he had been observing Joy and Zen closely. He noticed the lingering glances, the accidental touches, the way Joy's eyes would light up whenever Zen was around. He also noticed the sudden coldness, the awkward silences. One afternoon, Lolo Vicente called Nicole to his study. Nicole, iha, he began, his voice serious. Kilala mo ang apo ko. Alam kong malaki ang tiwala niya sa'yo. Tell me, honestly may tinatago ba si Joy sa akin? Itong si Zen totoo ba tong relasyon nila? Nicole, caught off guard, didn't know what to say. She couldn't betray Joy's trust. But she also couldn't lie to Lolo Vicente. Lolo, she began hesitantly, ang alam ko po, mahal ni Joy si Zen. At mahal din po ni Zen si Joy. Pero medyo complicated lang po sila ngayon. A half-truth, she hoped, would suffice. Lolo Vicente just nodded slowly, his eyes thoughtful. Complicated, Ethan. We'll see about that. The annual Monteverde Charity Gala was fast approaching. It was one of the biggest social events of the year, and Joy, as the and the soon-to-be-married, golden girl of the family, was expected to be the perfect hostess. Zen, of course, was her devoted fiancé. Pero yung tampuhan nila hindi pa rin nawawala. Joy, stressed and overwhelmed by the party preparations and her confusing feelings for Zen, found herself drinking a little too much champagne at the gala. She was starting to feel dizzy, a little reckless. She saw Zen across the ballroom, looking dashing in his tuxedo, talking to some business associates. But his eyes kept drifting towards her, a worried, almost pained, expression on his face. Suddenly, Joy felt a wave of defiance. If this was all fake, then why would not make the most of it? Even not test him. She deliberately stumbled, accidentally bumping into a waiter, causing a tray of champagne glasses to crash to the floor. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Joy feigned embarrassment, her cheeks flushing. Before anyone could react, Zen was there. He gently but firmly took her arm, shielding her from the judgmental stares. Are you okay, Mahal? He whispered, his voice low and concerned, for her ears only. Mahal. The word sent a jolt through Joy. I think I had too much to drink, Joy slurred, leaning heavily on him. Zen just sighed, mixture of exasperation and affection in his eyes. He apologized to the startled guests, then, without a word, he scooped Joy up into his arms, bridal style, and carried her out of the ballroom, much to the shock and amusement of the onlookers. He carried her all the way to her suite, his strong arms a surprising comfort. He gently laid her on the bed, took off her shoes, and even wiped her face with cool, damp cloth. Zen, Joy mumbled, her eyes half closed. Bakit ang bait mo sa akin? Contract lang naman to, di ba? Zen sat on the edge of her bed, looking at her, his expression unreadable in the dim light. He gently brushed a stray strand of hair from her forehead. Matulog ka na, Joy, he said softly. As Joy drifted off to sleep, she thought she heard him whisper, his voice barely audible, his breath warm against her ear. Kahit fake too, Joy, ikaw lang talaga. Ikaw lang yung nakikita ko. Or was it just a drunken dream? Yung di totoo parang mas totoo pa sa lahat. And Joy Monteverde, the strong, independent businesswoman, was starting to realize that she was falling, hard and fast, for her fake, enigmatic, and incredibly captivating ₱500,000 boyfriend. And that scared her more than any Lolo Vicente ultimatum. The morning after the gala, Joy woke up with pounding headache and a vague, unsettling memory of Zen's whispered words, kahit fake too, Joy ikaw lang talaga. Was it real? O panaginip lang dahil sa kalasingan? She didn't know what to believe anymore. Ang alam lang niya, yung nararamdaman niya para kay Zen, hindi na totally fake. It was terrifyingly, exhilaratingly real. Pero yung takot, yung pagdududa, nandyan pa rin. Sino ba talaga si Zen Lazaro? Saan siya galing? Ano na kwento ng buhay niya? Joy realized, with a jolt, that she knew next to nothing about the man she was supposedly going to marry in a few weeks. The man she was undeniably, hopelessly falling for. Nicole, Joy said during an emergency coffee meeting with her best friend later that day, I need you to do something for me. I need you to investigate Zen. Nicole choked on her lat. Investigate Zen? Seryoso ka, Joy? Akala ko ba head over heels ka na sa kanya? I am or I think I am, Joy admitted, her voice barely a whisper. Pero, Nick, there's something about him. Something he's not telling me. At bago pa ako tuluyang mahulog sa kanya, kailangan kong malaman ang totoo. Nicole, though hesitant, agreed. She had her connections. She could dig up dirt on anyone. A few days later, Nicole handed Joy a thin, brown envelope. Joy, Nicole said, her voice grave, are you sure you want to see this? Baka masaktan ka lang. Joy's heart pounded. Takot. Pero kailangan niyang malaman. She took deep breath and opened the envelope. Inside were few sheets of paper, background check on Zen Lazaro. And what she saw made her blood run cold. Zen Lazaro, I.B., Lorenzo Enzo de Guzman. Age, 30. Previous occupation, financial consultant. Marital status, single. Criminal record, arrested and convicted for estafa, fraud, 5 years ago. Served 2 years in Bilibid. Released on parole 3 years ago. Ex-convict. Si Zen. Ang lalaking minamahal niya. Ang lalaking pakakasalan niya. Isang ex-convict. Joy felt like she couldn't breathe. Galit. Gulat. At isang matinding, nakakaduwal na pakiramdam ng pagtataksil. All this time, he had been lying to her. This wasn't just a simple companion for hire with a mysterious past. This was something else entirely. That evening, Joy confronted Zen. The contract, the wedding preparations, the budding romance all forgotten. Ang tanging nasa isip niya lang, yung sakit ng panloloko. She found him in the rooftop terrace, their special spot, looking out at the city lights, pensive expression on his face. Zen, she said, her voice trembling, or should I say, Enzo de Guzman? Zen froze. He turned around slowly, his face pale, his eyes wide with a mixture of shock and was that resignation. Paano mo nalaman? Hindi na mahalaga yun. Joy cried, tears streaming down her face. She threw the investigation report at him. Ang mahalaga, nagsinungaling ka sa akin. All this time. Isang ex-convict ka pala. Isang manloloko. She slapped him. Hard. The sound echoed in the quiet night air. Niloko mo ako, Zen. Pinaniwala mo ako. Minahal kita. Zen didn't even flinch from the slap. He just looked at her, his eyes filled with deep, aching sadness. You never ask, Joy, he said softly, his voice hoarse. At wala akong balak magsinungaling kung tinanong mo. Hinihintay ko lang yung tamang panahon para sabihin sa'yo ang lahat. Tamang panahon? Joy shrieked. Kailan yun, Zen? Pagkatapos ng kasal natin? Pagkatapos mong makuha yung pera ko? Pagkatapos mong sirain ulit ang buhay ko? The pain, the betrayal, it was all too much. Hindi pera ang habol ko sa'yo, Joy, Zen insisted, his voice pleading. Manloko ako noon. Nagkamali ako. Sobra. Pero nagbago na ako. At yung nararamdaman ko para sa'yo. Yun ang pinakatotoo sa lahat. Hindi ako naniniwala sa'yo. Joy sobbed. Liar. You're just a liar. She couldn't bear to look at him anymore. She turned and ran, leaving him standing there, alone, under the cold, indifferent city lights. The next morning, Zen was gone. Iniwan niya ang Villa del Monte. Iniwan niya si Joy. Ang tanging naiwan lang niya sa ibabaw ng kama ni Joy ay isang maliit na kahon. Inside, was the expensive watch Joy had impulsively bought for him few weeks ago, during one of their wedding shopping trips. A watch he had initially refused, saying it was too much, but Joy had insisted. Beside the watch was a small, folded note. Joy, patawad. Siguro nga, tama ka. Manloloko ako. At hindi ko na dapat sinira pa ulit ang tiwala mo. This watch it's too beautiful for someone like me. Someone with a tainted past. Someone who doesn't deserve someone as good, as kind, as you. Sana, balang araw, mapatawad mo ako. At sana mahanap mo yung tunay na kaligayahan na deserve mo. See you. Joy stared at the watch, at the note, her heart shattering into a million more pieces. He left. He actually left. Without fighting for her. Without trying to explain further. Was this his admission of guilt? Was he really just a conman who had played with her feelings? Ang lihim ni Zen. It had been revealed. And it had destroyed everything. The galit, the takot, the betrayal, they were all consuming her. And Joy Monteverde, for the second time in her life, felt like her world had ended. The days following Zen's departure were a blur of lungkot and pagkalito for Joy. Iniwan siya. Ulit. First, it was her ex-fiancé who cheated on her with her own best friend, in a previous, unwritten backstory, perhaps. Then, her own Lolo Vicente, threatening to disinherit her if she didn't marry. And now, Zen. Ang lalaking akala niya, iba. Ang lalaking minahal niya, kahit pa binili ilang niya. She tried to be angry. She tried to hate him for his deception. Pero yung puso niya, may sariling isip. She missed him. Terribly. She missed his quiet presence, his enigmatic smile, the way his eyes would soften when he looked at her. She even missed their awkward, wedding planning sessions. One night, she found herself scrolling through her phone, looking at the few candid photos she had secretly taken of Zen, him, laughing at one of her corny jokes, him, looking pensive as he stared out at the city lights from the rooftop terrace, him, sleeping peacefully on her bed after the gala. A tear escaped her eye, then another. Ang tanga-tanga mo, Joy, she whispered to herself. Umasa ka na naman. Nagpakatanga ka na naman. The impending wedding was, of course, off. Lolo Vicente was furious, not at Zen, who had conveniently disappeared, but at Joy. Nakita mo na, Joy Marie, he thundered during another tense family dinner. Pati ba naman sa pagpili ng mapapangasawa, palpak ka pa rin. Isang ex-convict. Isang manloloko. Yan ba ang ipagmamalaki mo sa buong angkan ng Monteverde? Joy, who would usually cower under her lolo's anger, found a spark of defiance igniting within her. Maybe it was the heartbreak. Maybe it was the lingering memory of Zen's quiet strength. Or maybe she was just tired. Tired of being controlled, of being dictated to. Lolo, she said, her voice surprisingly calm, Zen may have lied about his past, yes. He may have made mistakes. Pero hindi siya masamang tao. At yung naramdaman ko para sa kanya totoo yun, Lolo. Mas totoo pa kaysa sa lahat ng perfect na pinipilit niyong isubo sa akin. Lolo Vicente was stunned into silence. It was the first time Joy had ever talked back to him, ever defied him. At isa pa, Lolo, Joy continued, her voice gaining strength, hindi ko kailangang magpakasal para lang mapatunayan ang sarili ko sa kumpanya o sa pamilyang to. I am Joy Monteverde. And I am more than capable of leading this company, with or without husband. At kung hindi nyo yun kayang makita, kung yung marriage certificate lang ang basihan nyo ng kakayahan ko, then maybe, I don't want to be a part of this company, or this family, anymore. With that, Joy stood up and walked out of the dining room, leaving a shocked Lolo Vicente and a stunned Monteverde clan in her wake. It was a terrifying, liberating moment. For the first time, she had stood up for herself. For her feelings. For Zen. Meanwhile, Nicole, feeling guilty for her part in unearthing Zen's past and seeing her best friend so heartbroken, couldn't let things go. May kung anong hindi tama sa kwento ni Zen. Yung mga mata niya, yung sinabi niya kay Joy na nagbago na ako, it felt sincere. So, Nicole did some more digging. Deeper this time. She used all her connections, called in a few favors. And what she discovered was shocking. The estafa case Zen, or Enzo de Guzman, was convicted for it was a setup. A very elaborate, very cruel setup. He was framed by his former business partner, a man who had once been his closest friend. Zen had trusted him, only to be betrayed, left to take the fall for a crime he didn't commit. He had served 2 years in prison for nothing. Walang kasalanan. Inocente. Nicole rushed to Villa del Monte, her heart pounding, the evidence clutched tightly in her hand. She found Joy in her room, staring blankly out the window. Joy! Nicole exclaimed, breathless. May nalaman ako. Tungkol kay Zen. Joy looked at her, her eyes dull, lifeless. Wala na akong pakialam kay Zen, Nick. Manloloko siya. Tapos na kami. Hindi, Joy. Hindi siya manloloko. Nicole insisted. She laid out the evidence, documents, witness testimonies, even a secretly recorded confession from one of the minor players in the setup. Joy, Zen was framed. He's innocent. All this time, biktima lang din siya. Joy stared at the evidence, her mind reeling. Innocent. Si Zen inocente. All the anger, the betrayal she had felt, it was all based on a lie. A lie that had cost her the man she loved. Masakit man, pero totoo. The truth was a bitter pill to swallow, but it was also a glimmer of pag-asa. Zen wasn't a con man. He was a victim. And she had pushed him away. She had accused him, hurt him, when all along, he was probably hurting more than she ever knew. Guilt, sharp and swift, pierced through Joy's numbness. She had to find him. She had to apologize. She had to tell him she still loved him. Kinuha niya ang cellphone niya, her hands trembling. She tried calling his old number, the one he used as Zen. But it was no longer active. Nagpalit na siya ng numero. O baka naman ayaw na talaga niyang makausap pa si Joy. The pag-asa that had flickered in Joy's heart was now mixed with new, desperate fear. What if it was too late? What if she had lost him for good this time? The truth about Zen's innocence hit Joy like a physical blow. All this time, she had believed the worst, let her anger and fear cloud her judgment. At ngayon, baka huli na ang lahat. Zen was gone, and she had no idea where to find him. Pero hindi sumuko si Joy. With Nicole's help, and a surprising, albeit reluctant, assistance from Lolo Vicente, who, after Joy's confrontation, seemed to have a change of heart, or at least, grudging respect for her newfound independence, they started their search. It wasn't easy. Zen, or Enzo de Guzman, had practically vanished. He had no family left, his parents having passed away years ago. His old friends, after his conviction, had all turned their backs on him. He was truly alone. Then, breakthrough. Nicole remembered Zen mentioning a small, almost forgotten piece of land his parents had left him in San Isidro, remote, mountainous province several hours away from Manila. It was a long shot, but it was their only lead. Without a second thought, Joy decided to go. Nagpaalam siya sa lolo niya, not asking for permission, but informing him of her decision. Lolo, she said, her voice firm, I have to do this. For myself. And for Zen. Lolo Vicente just nodded, a strange, almost sad, expression on his face. The journey to San Isidro was long and arduous. Joy had to take a bus, then a series of rickety jeepneys, and finally, a habal-habal, motorcycle taxi, up a steep, winding mountain road. The small piece of land turned out to be an isolated, almost dilapidated nipa hut, surrounded by overgrown cogon grass, overlooking a breathtaking, but desolate, mountain range. And there, sitting on the porch of the nipa hut, staring out at the vast emptiness, was Zen. He looked different. Thinner. More rugged. His eyes, though still holding that familiar sadness, also had newfound peace. Parang nakahanap siya ng kanlungan sa gitna ng kawalan. When he saw Joy approaching, his eyes widened in disbelief. "Joy," he whispered, as if seeing a ghost. "Anong ginagawa mo dito?" Joy's heart ached at the sight of him, at the loneliness in his eyes. "Hinahanap ka," she said simply, her voice trembling. Just then, the area opened up. Bumuhos ang malakas na ulan, the kind that turned the mountain paths into treacherous mudslides. They were trapped. Trapped together in this small, isolated nipa hut, with nothing but the sound of the rain and the unspoken emotions between them. For a long moment, they just stared at each other, the tension thick, the silence deafening. Then, Joy couldn't hold it in anymore. "Zen," she began, tears streaming down her face, "patawarin mo ako. Sa lahat ng nasabi ko. Sa lahat ng ginawa ko. Nalaman ko na ang totoo. Nalaman ko na inosente ka. At ako yung naging tanga. Ako yung naging bulag." Zen just looked at her, his expression unreadable. "Alam kong nasaktan kita," Joy continued, her voice choked with emotion. "Alam kong sinira ko yung tiwala mo. Pero maniwala ka, Zen, yung naramdaman ko para sa'yo totoo yun. Minahal kita. At mahal pa rin kita." The confession hung in the air, raw and vulnerable. Zen closed his eyes, a single tear escaping and tracing the path down his rain-streaked cheek. "Bakit, Joy?" he finally asked, his voice hoarse. "Bakit ngayon pa? Nung akala ko nakalimutan na kita. Nung akala ko okay na ako." "Kasi hindi ako okay, Zen," Joy said, stepping closer. "Hindi ako okay nang wala ka. Nung umalis ka parang nawala ng kulay ang mundo ko." She reached out and gently touched his arm. "Wala nang kontrata, Zen. Wala nang lolo na kailangang i-please. Wala nang 500,000 na bayad. Pero kung pwede, ako na lang ulit. Tayo na lang ulit." Zen looked at her, at the sincerity in her eyes, at the love that was so clearly written on her face. He saw the pain, the regret, but also the hope. A hope that mirrored his own. "Paano kung mahirap ako, Joy?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Paano kung wala akong pangalan na maipagmamalaki? Paano kung yung Zen Lazaro na minahal mo, yun lang talaga ako?" Joy smiled through her tears, a radiant, beautiful smile that seemed to light up the gloomy, rain-swept hut. "Mas mahalaga yung puso mo, Zen," she said softly. "Mas mahalaga yung ikaw. At ako. Yung puso ko sa'yo na yun. Noon pa man." That was all Zen needed to hear. He pulled her into his arms, crushing her against him, his lips finding hers in a kiss that was both desperate and tender, a kiss that tasted of rain, of tears, of forgiveness, and of a love that had weathered storms and emerged stronger, truer. They held each other for a long time, the rain drumming relentless, terrestrial on the nipa roof, the thunder echoing in the distance. But inside their small, makeshift lutizia, temporary shelter of love, there was only warmth, only peace, only them. "Mahal kita, Joy Monteverde," Zen whispered against her hair. "Mahal na mahal. Mahal din kita, Zen Lazaro o Enzo de Guzman o kung sino ka man," Joy whispered back, her heart overflowing. "Pipiliin pa rin kita. Kahit ano pa ang mangyari." The contract was null and void. The lies were forgiven. The past was laid to rest, all that was left was the truth, a truth so powerful, so undeniable, it could move mountains. Ang pagmamahal. Ang kilig. Ang pag-asa. They had found their way back to each other, in the most unexpected of places, in the most challenging of circumstances. And this time, they weren't going to let go. The storm eventually passed, both literally and figuratively. Joy and Zen returned to Manila, not as a Monteverde heiress and her mysterious fiancé for hire, but as two people deeply, irrevocably in love, ready to face whatever the future held, together. Lolo Vicente, surprisingly, was supportive. Maybe Joy's defiance had finally opened his eyes. Or maybe, he had seen the genuine happiness in his granddaughter's eyes, a happiness he hadn't seen in years. He didn't insist on grand wedding or to suitable husband. He just wanted Joy to be happy. And if Zen, the ex-convict who was framed, the man who had once been bought for 500,000, was the one who could give her that happiness, then so be it. Their wedding was held a few months later, not in a lavish ballroom or centuries-old church, but in a simple, rustic garden in San Isidro, the same province where Zen had found his solace, the same place where Joy had found him again. It was a small, intimate affair, attended only by their closest family and friends. Nicole, of course, was the ecstatic maid of honor, tears of joy streaming down her face. Joy wore a simple, elegant white dress, her eyes shining with a love so pure, so radiant, it took Zen's breath away. Zen, in a crisp Barong Tagalog, looked at her as if she were the only woman in the world, his heart overflowing with a love and gratitude he never thought he'd feel again. During the ceremony, Lolo Vicente, his voice thick with emotion, walked Joy down the aisle. And in a gesture that surprised everyone, he took off the centuries-old Monteverde family heirloom ring from his own finger, ring that was supposed to be passed down to the next Monteverde heir, and presented it to Zen. Iho, Lolo Vicente said, his eyes twinkling, hindi man Monteverde ang apelyido mo, pero sa puso ko, at sa puso ng apo ko, pamilya ka na namin. This ring it symbolizes not just wealth or power, but love, commitment, and family. And I can think of no one more deserving to wear it, and to take care of as my granddaughter, than you. Zen, stunned and deeply moved, accepted the ring, tears welling up in his eyes. He slipped it onto Joy's finger, key perfect fit, symbol of their unconventional but incredibly real love story. Life for Joy and Zen after the wedding was beautifully ordinary. They chose to live the simple life, away from the glitz and glamour of Manila's high society. Zen, with Lolo Vicente's backing and his own surprisingly astute business sense, honed give years of hardship, started a small, sustainable farming cooperative in San Isidro, helping local farmers and providing for his growing family. Joy, finally free from the pressures of the Monteverde group, pursued her passion for writing, penning a best-selling memoir about her experiences, story of love, betrayal, and second chances. And speaking of a growing family, a few years later, their small Nipa hut-inspired home in San Isidro was filled with the happy, chaotic sounds of 4 little boys. Yes, 4. Apparently, twins ran in Zen's, long-lost, recently rediscovered, family. And then, they had another set. 4 boisterous, energetic, and incredibly adorable little Zens, running around, causing mischief, and filling their parents' lives with an unimaginable amount of joy, and a Tita Nicole who was always ready for babysitting duties. One sunny afternoon, Joy was watching Zen play with their 4 sons in their sprawling backyard. Chaotic but heartwarming scene of laughter, piggyback rides, and a very lopsided game of habulan. Team Boy, as Zen proudly called them, was definitely winning. Joy smiled, deep, contented sigh escaping her lips. She remembered that fateful day, scrolling through Para sa Puso, lay, choosing a stranger based on the look in his eyes. She remembered the 500,000, the contract, the lies, the heartbreak. And then, she remembered the rain, the confessions, the healing, the love. All of this, she whispered to herself, her eyes shining with tears of pure, unadulterated happiness, as she watched her husband and her 4 sons, her beautiful, unexpected family. All of this started with 500,000. Zen looked up, caught her gaze, and smiled, that same enigmatic, captivating smile that had drawn her in from the very beginning. He winked at her, then scooped up their youngest son, who was giggling uncontrollably. Mahal, Joy called out, her voice filled with a love so profound, it echoed through the peaceful afternoon air. Dinner's ready. Ang lalaki sa halagang 500,000. Ang ex-convict. Ang manloloko. Siya na ngayon ang asawa niya. Ang mahal niya. Ang ama ng mga anak niya. And Joy Monteverde, no, Joy de Guzman, wouldn't have it any other way. Because sometimes, the best investments, the ones that yield the greatest returns, are not measured in pesos, but in love, in laughter, and in the icing, unpredictable, and utterly beautiful journey of a happily ever after that was never part of the plan. This time, it wasn't just a contract. It was forever. And it was, by far, the best 500 ay she had ever spent. Nais ko pong ipaabot ang aking pinakamalaki at pinakasinserong pasasalamat sa inyong walang sawang pagsubaybay sa bawat kabanata ng nakakaloka, nakakakilig, at siguradong hindi nyo inasahan na love story ni na Joy Monteverde at Zen Lazaro Enzo de Guzman. Mula sa isang desperadong companion for hire na kontrata, hanggang sa mga pasabog na revelasyon, hanggang sa 4 na nagwagwapuhang mga anak, grabe, sinamahan nyo sila at ako, sa bawat totoo ba to, moment. Maraming salamat po sa inyong pagmamahal at sa pag-invest ng inyong oras at feels sa kwentong ito. Best investment ever. Habang isinusulat ko ang kwentong ito, para akong laging nasa isang business meeting na biglang naging rom-com, tapos naging heavy drama, tapos naging family comedy. May mga eksenang tawang-tawa ako sa kalokohan ni Nicole. May mga pagkakataong gusto kong i-hug si Joy sa bigat ng mga pinagdadaanan niya, at may mga moments na shit, ang gwapo ni Zen, ako, kahit ex-convict pa siya. Char! Ang sarap sa pakiramdam na bumuo ng mga karakter na, kahit nagsimula sa isang transaksyon, ay nagpakita ng tunay na pagbabago, pagpapatawad at pagmamahal.